Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our QR code generation tool design series into the single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, we are basically going to create this design right here. So whatever data you enter over here in this text field will be converted as a QR code over here on the right side. We will design it using HTML and CSS, and in the end we will use a library called QR code for generating the QR code. And I will also show you how to add this design to your Blogger website. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So let's get started. So here we can see on the right side we have this QR code, and on the left side we have this text field. And you can go ahead and add any text over here and click on generate QR code, and the QR code will be generated over here. So if I just type testing and if I press generate QR code, here we can see we have this QR code for this text testing. So if I hover over this, we can see testing is being displayed. And in the same way, you can go ahead and add the links of any website over here and just click on generate QR code, and you'll have the QR code for the link. So we will start designing this in this video. Let's get started. Right here I have created this folder called QR code generator, and I have this images folder over here, and in that we have this image for the QR code. This will be just for testing the design. So let's go ahead and create the necessary files. I'll just click on new file, and let's create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html. And we'll also need to have a CSS file. Let's name it style.css. And we'll also have a JavaScript file. Let's name it main.js. Now let's start with our index.html file. Now in VS Code you have this shortcut where you can just press exclamation and press tab, and you will have this basic HTML5 code. And let's link our CSS file over here. And let's also link the JavaScript file over here in the body. So I'll just type script:/src and press tab, and here I'll just type main.js. Right now let's start with the markup of our QR code generator. The first thing we will do is we will create a container division, and let's give it a class of QR code generator container, or let's type QR code container. And here the first thing we need to have is a heading. So here we can see we have this heading, generate QR code. So I'll just create an h2 for that, and here I'll just type generate QR code. And below that we need to have this text area, we need to have this button below that, and on the right side we need to have this QR code. So what we will do is we will create a container division for all these elements. So let's create a division with the class of content, and in that on the left side we need to have these two elements. So I'll just create a division with the class of control, and in that we will have a text area. So let's type text area, and I'll just delete all of this, and I'll just create a class, and let's give it a class of QR code message. And then we need to have this button. So let's create a button over here, and for the button we will give a class of generate button, and here I'll just type generate QR code. And then on the right side we need to have the QR code. So I'll just create a division with the class of QR code, and in here we need to have the QR code, but for now I'll just add this image that we have over here. So I'll just type img, and in the src I'll just type images /QR code sample. Right now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called live server installed in VS Code. So once you install that, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on open with live server. And here we can see now we have the design displayed in the browser. Now let's go ahead and style it using CSS. So let's go to our style.css file, and first of all let's target the container division, which is QR code container, and we'll give it a max width of 800 pixels, and let's bring it to the center. So I'll just type margin 0 for top and bottom and auto for left and right, and we'll set the font family to Poppins and sans serif, and we'll also set the text align to center. Right now if we go back to our design, this is how it looks right now. Now let's style this heading. So for the heading we have an h2 inside the QR code container. So let's type QR code container h2, and we will set the font size of this to 40 pixels, and that looks alright. Right now we need to have this text area and this button on the left side, and we need to have this QR code on the right side. So both of these elements are inside this division with the class of content. So in that we have the control division, and then we have the QR code division. So we will set the display of the content to flex so that both these elements are one next to the other. So let's type QR code container content, and let's set the display to flex, and we will add a gap of 20 pixels between the elements. So this is how it looks, and we'll also bring this to the extreme ends of the division. So if I go back to the container and if I add a background color over here we can see on the right side we have a lot of space. So here we can just type justify content and set it to space between. And now we can see that the elements are on the extreme left and right. Right now let's remove this background color. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to bring these two elements one below the other. So we need to have the text area at the top and this button at the bottom. So let's target the container division, which is this division with the class of control, in that we have the text area and the button. So let's type QR code container control, and we'll set the display to flex, and we'll set the flex direction to column. And now we can see that these elements are one below the other. Now let's set the flex of the control to 1 so that it can take up the full width. So let's type flex and let's set it to 1. And now we can see it has the full width. And now the next thing we will do is we will have a full width for this text area, and at the bottom we will have a little bit of space for this button. So for that, let's go back and we will target the text area, which has a class of QR code message. So let's type QR code container QR code message, and now let's set the flex of this to 1. We'll also add some gap between these two elements. So let's go back to the container, and here let's type gap, and I'll just set it to 8 pixels. And we'll also change the font of this text area. So let's go back, and here let's type font family, and let's set it to Poppins and sans serif. And I'll just set the font size to 18 pixels. And we'll also add some padding, and I'll just set it to 18 pixels. And here we can see we have this option of resizing the text area. So I'll just disable that. I'll just type resize, and I'll just set it to none. And now we don't have the option of resizing. Right now the last thing we need to do is style this button. So for the button we have this button with the class of generate button. So I'll just type QR code container generate button, and for the button I'll just remove the border, and we'll just set the padding to 12 pixels and 32 pixels. And let's set the font size of the button to 20 pixels. And let's add a background color of 001219. And let's set the color of the text to white. And we'll also set the cursor to pointer. So let's type cursor pointer. And now when we hover over this, we have this pointer. Right, so that's basically it with the design of our QR code generator. And we'll also make it responsive. So if we go back to the original design, and if I decrease the width of this browser window, here we can see when we are on a smaller screen, we have the control division at the top and the QR code at the bottom. So let's do that. So here I'll just add a media query. So I'll just type at media, and let's set the max width to 700 pixels. So when the screen width is less than 700 pixels, all the CSS in this block will be added to our design. So what we need to do is we need to set the flex direction of the container division to column. So the container division is content. So we have this division with the class of content, and in that we have these two divisions over here. So let's go back and let's target that. And here if we scroll to the top, here we have already set the display to flex. So I'll just copy this selector from here, and I'll just paste it over here. And here I'll just set the flex direction to column, and I'll also set the max width to 400 pixels, and I will also bring it to the center. So I'll just type margin 0 auto, and now we can see this is how it looks on a smaller screen. And if I increase the width of the browser window, this is how it looks on a larger screen. So it is completely responsive. Right, so that's basically it with the design of our QR code generator. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to get the CDN of QR code library. So if you go to Google and just search for QR code CDN.js, you'll find this link of cdnjs.com. So let's click on this link. And here we can see this is the CDN of qrcode.min.js. So let's click on copy script tag, and let's go back to our source code, and let's go to the HTML file, and I'll just paste the link over here. So this is our CDN of qrcode.min.js. This is the library that we're going to use for the QR code generation. Now if you take a look at this division, here we can see we have this division with the class of QR code, and in that we have this image for the styling as of now. So let's remove this image from here, and we're going to use a real QR code over here. So let's go to our main.js file, and we have already linked that over here. So let's go to the main.js file, and let's see how to create the QR code. Now if you go back to our design, here we can see that we have this text field and this button over here, and the image of the QR code is now gone. So we have to generate the QR code over here. Now in the beginning, what we will do is we will have a sample QR code, and in that we will have just a text of some information about our application. So let's create a variable called message, and I'll just set it equal to write something in the text field, and click on generate QR code button. And now let's write the code to create the QR code. So let's create a variable called QR code, and we need to set that equal to a new QR code object. So let's type QR code. Now here you have to pass a parameter. So the first one is the division for the QR code. So if you go back to our index.html file, here we can see we have this division with the class of QR code. So let's reference that over here in the JavaScript. Here I'll just create a constant, and I'll just name it QR code image, and I'll just set it equal to document.querySelector, and here I'll just type QR code. So here for the first argument, let's type this element over here. And the next one is the options. So let's create an object for that. Now in this we can have different options. So first of all, let's add the text. So the text is basically this message right here. So just type message over here. And then we can add other options like width and height. So let's set the width to 300, and let's also set the height to 300. And then we can add the dark color and the light color. So for the color dark, let's type 001219, and then for the color light, let's just type white color. Right, so now let's go back to our design, and here we can see we have this QR code, and if we hover over this QR code, here we can see it says write something in the text field, and click on generate QR code button. So our QR code generation is working alright. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to generate QR code based on the text that we have inside this text field. So for that, let's go back to our code, and we need to reference some of these elements from the HTML file. The first thing we need to reference is the text area, which has a class of QR code message. So here let's type const QR code message equals document.querySelector, and let's type QR code message. And then we also need to reference the button, because we need to perform the action when we click on the button. So for the button, we have this class of generate btn. So let's go back to our main.js file, and let's type const, and I'll just name it generate btn, and we'll just set it equal to document.querySelector, and here let's type generate btn. Right, now we need to add an event listener to this generate btn button. So let's type generate btn dot add event listener, and we need to listen for the click event. And when we click on this generate QR code button, we need to create a new QR code. So let's create an arrow function over here, and the first thing we need to do is we need to change the message variable, which we have over here, to the value of this QR code message. So let's type message equals QR code message dot value. So this will store the value of this text field inside this variable right here. And the next thing we need to do is we need to generate the QR code. So for that, I'll just create a function, and I'll just name it generate QR code, and we will pass the message as an argument over here. So let's type message. Right, now let's create this function. So I'll just type const generate QR code, and we will have the message passed over here. So I'll just name it message. You can name this anything you want. And here inside this function, the first thing we need to do is we need to clear this QR code right here. So for that you can just type QR code, which is the name of the variable of our QR code. So let's type QR code dot clear. So this is a function that we get from this QR code library. And the next thing we need to do is we need to create the QR code. So for that we have to type QR code, and in the library we have a function called make code. So let's type make code, and we need to pass the message over here. So I'll just type message. And now let's go back to our design and let's see whether everything works all right. So in the beginning we have this QR code with this message of the instruction. And now let's type something over here. I'll just type testing 1 2 3, and let's click on generate QR code. Now we can see we have a different QR code, and let's hover over this QR code and let's see whether the message is displayed correctly. And now we can see it says testing 1 2 3, so the QR code is working all right. So in this way you can go ahead and add any text over here or any website link you want over here, and just click on generate QR code, and the QR code will be generated over here. Alright, so that's basically how you can create a QR code generator for your website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Right here I'm in the dashboard of my Blogger website, so you can add this design into a post or a page. If you want to add it inside a page, you can just go over here to pages and click on new page and add it over here. I'll just add it to a post. So let's click on posts and let's click on new post. And the first thing you have to do is you have to change this into the HTML view. So by default it will be in the compose view, so you can just click on this button and click on HTML view. And I'll just change the title to QR code generator. Right now here we need to add the code. So we need to add the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first of all let's add the CSS. I'll just create a style tag for that. And in this style tag we will add the CSS. So let's go to our source code. And let's go to the style.css file and let's copy all the CSS from here. And I'll just paste it over here. And now let's go ahead and paste the HTML. So outside this style tag, let's go back and paste the HTML from here. So let's go to the index.html file and I'll just copy and paste this HTML from here. I'll also copy this script tag from here and I'll just paste it over here. And the last thing we need to do is add the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag for that. And in the script tag we will add the JavaScript. So let's go back to our source code and let's go to the main.js file and let's copy everything from here and let's paste it over here inside the script tag. Now here we can see we have all these details over here, so you can go ahead and make changes to whatever you want. So by default at the beginning it will show this message in the QR code. So if you go back to our design and if you go to the QR code, if I hover over this, we can see by default it says write something in the text field and click on generate QR code button. Now you can go ahead and change this message to anything you want. So you can change that over here in this message variable over here. And then we have this heading and this button text over here. So you can change these to whatever you want. This is the heading and this is the button text. And then if you go back to the main.js file, here we also have some options for the QR code. So you can also change the color of the QR code. So if I just change this dark color to red, and if you go back here we can see we have a red QR code. So in this way you can change these colors to whatever you want. And then you can also change the height and the width. So you can make all these changes over here inside this design. Right now let's go back to our post and let's click on publish and confirm. Alright, here we can see our post has been published. Let's click on view. And here we can see we have our generate QR code tool. And here we can see for this heading we don't have a black color. So that's because for the theme all the headings have this color right here. So let's go back to our post and let's just change the color of this heading to black. So here for the H2, let's type color and I'll just set it to black. And let's click on update. Right now let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see we have the correct color for our heading. And this is the QR code by default. And let's type something and let's see whether the QR code is generated correctly. So I'll just type hello everyone. And let's click on generate QR code. And now we can see we have a new QR code and let's hover over this. and we can see it says hello everyone, so it is working all right. Now this is also completely responsive, so if I decrease the width of this browser window, now we can see we have a different layout, so it is completely responsive. Now here we can see we are using a font called Poppins. So if you go back to our CSS, here we can see we are using this font called Poppins, and right now the font is installed on my system. That's why we can see that the font is displayed over here. But when you add this design to your website, you have to add the link of the font. So I'll just show you how to do that. For that, you have to go to fonts.google.com and let's search for the font over here. You can just search for it over here, and let's click on this font, and we can select the styles that we need. So in our design, we can see that we just have two different styles. We have the bold version and regular version. So let's go back and let's select this regular 400. Let's scroll down and let's select a bold version. I'll just select this one right here, bold 700. And now you have to click on this button called View Selected Families. And here we can see we have this link that we can paste into our website. And if you scroll down, we also have a link for the CSS. So you can paste any of these links over here. I'll just copy this one right here. And let's go back and paste it inside the CSS. So here, I'll just paste the line of code. And now you can simply click on update, and the post will be updated with the correct font. So that's basically how you can add a QR code generator to your Blogger website. Alright, so that's it for this video. I will leave the link of the source code in the description, and if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.